So for the average automotive enthusiast, you might look at your local mechanic who plays with interesting old cars, or your favorite YouTuber and think, wow, what a life. Must be great to be able to just work on cars all day long and get paid for it. But it's not always the glitz and glamour you think it is. It can be quite difficult at times, but other times, yes, it is all very interesting and can be a lot of fun, and I am lucky to be able to do this. For me, cars is a way of life. Always has been, always will be. I love cars, and I can't ever see myself not playing with them and working on them. But when you turn your hobby into your livelihood, some of that glitz and glamour wears off, and it can wear you down at times, especially when you get so busy working on everybody else's stuff that you don't get to your own stuff. And you gotta find that balance. And running a YouTube channel, you also gotta find that balance, because every time you film something, it takes longer. And of course, can't charge the customer that extra time. Much like with restorations. Mechanical work, you can just bing, bang, boom, get it in, get it out, charge for every hour you put into it. Restorations, you can't. So you got to balance how much time you put in restorations and how much time you put into mechanical jobs. And while sometimes mechanical jobs can be difficult, these restorations sometimes can just kick you in the nuts again and again and again. And this car absolutely has been no exception to that rule whatsoever. Now, if you remember, this isn't really a total restoration for me. The car was already mostly restored and just needed final assembly. Except that final assembly has turned into almost stripping the car back to the bare chassis and starting over. Probably would have been easier to do it that way, but you never know what somebody else has done to a car before you get to it. And in this case here, I think every hand that touched this car since the restoration started wasn't knowledgeable about these cars. They didn't know TDs, and a lot of stuff assembled wrong, and a lot of stuff just not quite right. Which really, to me, I think really sucks for this car, because this car is only showing 14,000 miles on the speedometer. And that might be genuine miles, because when the engine was rebuilt, I put a scope down in there and it shows standard pistons. If it had more miles than that on it, they wouldn't have got away with standard pistons for the rebuild. Actually, I'm surprised they got away with it as it is, because sitting as many years as this thing did, you'd think there'd be little rust lines around where the piston rings were and they'd still have to bore it out. But I don't have any idea who built the engine. I don't know who painted the body, and I don't know who did the assembly work up to this point, or up to the point that it came to me. But this car was so clean, basically, they didn't touch it with a welder. Not a bit of fabrication or welding work was done, no rust repair, and the chassis doesn't even have any rust pitting in it. So for a guy like me, that makes it even worse that this car was not assembled correctly. I don't know who took it apart, but all the original hardware and a lot of the little bits and pieces just disappeared. And whoever did put it together just threw in whatever bolts would fit the holes, some metric, some not, and almost nothing at all Whitworth like it's supposed to be. This could have been a really, really easy car to make a concours car out of. And now all I'm doing is just trying to make it as right as I can to get it back together so the guy can start driving it and enjoying it. So oftentimes when you get into projects like this, the customers just don't understand why you have to take so much back apart, but it was already so far together. But I've been lucky that this guy has been pretty good about that. He said, I want it as right as you can realistically make it without pouring money into it. But every time I say I find something, he's like, okay, well, fix it. And so he's been working with me really well on that, but it hasn't exactly been front burner project either. And I need to get this thing done. He really wants to get back into this thing, and we've been trying to make a big push to try to get this thing as far done as I can get it done, and hopefully have it running and drive it to the spring show. And this thing just keeps kicking back. He originally, I did not want to put this supercharger on it to start this engine. This engine was built more than 15 years ago and has been sitting just in the chassis, has never been fired. And I don't like even, letting him in on a supercharger to start with. So when I told him, bring me the original carbs, we'll put them back on. Well, it didn't have the original carbs. This is what was on it when he bought it. It's a set of Rochester 1 barrels, which is some kind of a kit that was sold many years ago, and I'm missing just enough pieces off these that I can't actually put these back on it and start them on it. And I don't have any T-Series carburetors laying around that I can put on it, so we're going to end up starting it on this and bedding it in with the supercharger. So as I'm preparing to try to get this thing fired up for the first time, some of the things I needed to do was look at like the oil filter. This is an aftermarket oil filter that was sold many, many years ago, and I've been able to find no real information at all about this particular one. So I said, well, let me go ahead and take it off, see what's inside of it, so I know what element goes in it. And I opened it up and there was nothing at all. I believe there should be a spring and a plate here like most of these style filters, and there's nothing here. Plus, it wasn't even cleaned very well, so that kind of makes me worried. Hopefully the guy who built the engine didn't put this on there, but I did notice that there's blue silicone hanging out all the gaskets, and to me, that's not a great sign, because I don't know any really good mechanics for the last 35 years that still use the blue. So he gave me an oil pump that was in one of the boxes, said, we can put this thing on here because it's a late style oil pump. But I noticed it was bent here. And when I got it out of the box, it's broken here, so we can't use it. So scratch that idea. So I went ahead and bought the Moss adapter here for a spin-on filter. Made the executive decision that that's what we're going to do. But then that takes a little bit of fiddling and fettling, more than it should, to install it. If they would have made just a couple minor adjustments to the height of it as they were speccing it out, it would have been a little easier to install. So in order to prepare this thing for its first start, I need to make sure things like the tappets and the cam are properly lubricated, which means I needed to take the side cover off, get all the rocker assembly and everything off this thing so I can get in there and make sure it's all lubricated properly first. Because no matter how well they lubricated it when they build it, after 15 years, it's not going to still be lubricated. So I took all this stuff apart, got in there, and I did pull the distributor out and found that even the original bolt to hold the distributor in was missing. It just had a regular bolt in. That's a special bolt that has a little tip on the end of it that goes into this groove here to keep the distributor from pulling out. And yeah, it's a special bolt. So we had to order one of those, and then it had all the wrong hardware here. So just more little things. But now we got it this far where I got a supercharger on it, got it filled with oil, and I said, well, now let's get this thing cranked over, get some oil pressure. Get oil in it, start cranking, and I'm not getting oil pressure. I primed it, got it coming out here, and just can't get it up to the cylinder head. Because once the oil galley gets full, it just starts running out the back of the engine. So now we're going to have to pull the engine out because something behind the flywheel, maybe there's an oil galley plug back there that is just missing, or something like that. I don't remember. It's been too long since I've really dug that deep into one of these engines to remember what's back there. But obviously we got a problem. So another big step backwards. Everything I've done this last week to get it ready to start, all has to come out. This is the kind of stuff you get into when you jump into a half-done project. You know, it may look like it's not that far from being done, but depending on who tore it apart, who organized the parts, it still wasn't you that did it. So you still don't know how things are organized. You just have boxes of stuff. You start going through it. Maybe you find the stuff, maybe you don't. And in this case, I think he's got a box of stuff that's totally missing from the car, but he brought me everything he could find. But when cars sit for 15 years in the middle of restoration, that's another thing that happens. Stuff just magically seems to disappear. I don't normally like to take these kind of half-done projects on because they can really be a pain. And somehow though, every 5 or 6 years or so, I end up taking one on. Usually because of the story behind it, or like in this case, a friend of a friend. But, and actually I just found another little issue here because the butterfly on the carb is just catching the casting inside here because I've never really tried to open it all the way. So yeah, one more thing.